Three. Hello. Hello. This is Mike Jones, and over here is Dale Matthews. Hello.
Okay. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I'm Dale Matthews. I'm not the normal Dale Matthews you're used to seeing, and I know I look a little
I'm not sure
different.
there is any normal Dale Matthews they're used to seeing, to be honest.
You
Okay.
may be onto something
Yes,
there.
that's right.
Yes.
So this is Tuesday, and we're going to be talking a bit about local media. There's nobody else that reviews local media, and in this case, it happens to also include the commissioners. But we're going to start off with a little news story that we introduced to you last night, and it's been augmented by additional details. Sounds official, huh? So here's a
Hmm.
picture you'll find interesting from yesterday's Boatnik Parade, Memorial Day Parade. And the picture looks like this. Now, who is that there behind Joseph Rice?
That's Gil Gilbertson.
That's
Uh,
Sheriff Gil Gilbertson. And he's got his hands on him. Well, they like each other. That's cool. Okay. Well, we found out today, listening to KJO Radio with the commissioners on it. By the way, KJO says they get about 3,000 listeners. That sounds like a lot, except there have been times where we've gotten 3,000 views just for one video out of 10 of them that we put up in a day. So it's not typical, but okay. At any rate, it turns out that two other people who were on that float with the Oath Keepers included Keith Heck, who had nothing positive to say about the miners during their dispute with the BLM, and Roy Lindsay. Roy Lindsay, the city councilor. So one of the things I think is kind of interesting about Roy Lindsay and the sheriff. So I mentioned this story to you folks before, but some people didn't make the connection at the time. I was at a table at the growers market back when they permitted this kind of thing. Now suddenly, oh, that's terrible. We're not going to allow that anymore. And in order to get there during some times of the year, you're going to have to arrive while it's dark. I mean, if you get there about 3 o'clock in the morning, you've got to be a fanatic for one, but you
right.
will get a good position. And when Roy Lindsay showed up at about, I don't know, 10 minutes after 9 or something like that, he looked around and he said, I'm going to need this spot right here. And I kind of looked at him with like, he says, well, that's a good spot. I said, yes, it is. And I got here like 3 o'clock in the morning to get this one. Well, I'm going to need that spot. Roy, you're not joking? No, no, this is important. It was promoting yet another levy. And I said, no, no, Roy Lindsay is now on the city council. That's not going to work. You just got to get here earlier next time. No, I mean, I need that right now.
So
Like,
what were you doing there? Were you selling your pot brownies again?
oh, brother. No, I was there and I was running for office, as a matter of fact. Okay.
Oh.
Well,
Oh, and
the,
so
the
he
election
thought his
equivalent.
political issue trumped yours or something?
Yeah. Yeah. So, all
Wow.
right. So, as if that isn't lunatic enough, the sheriff then showed up, Gil Gilbertson, the guy that was in that photo. And he comes up and he sees this, and he was the sheriff at that time. And he came up in uniform and he lights into me. What? And he says, you just got to move. And I said, Sheriff, I think you're a little out of your jurisdiction here. He said, well, no, you got to move this because this is really important. And I said, Roy, you and Roy are just going to have to show up a little earlier. I mean, I get the point that you feel that your issue is the number one issue in the universe, but still, I mean, I wasn't very nice about it because what? The sheriff is telling me I'm going to have to move along? And Roy Lindsay, this is super religious Roy Lindsay. A little bit like Dennis Weber, except without all the trappings. Roy Lindsay then called me a name that starts with A and it's got 7 letters in it.
Yes. It starts with A and ends with a hole.
This is Roy Lindsay, and that's the sheriff. See, there were some times where he was a constitutional sheriff, hooray. And there were some times where he was spectacularly, completely lunatic wrong. And that was one of those cases. So who was
Yeah, you know
on
what?
that?
It's
Who was on I was trying to lead to a point. You would never know that from watching the show.
yes.
Who was on that float with Joseph Rice? Gil Gilbertson, who's made no bones about it. He just doesn't like our current sheriff. And Roy Lindsay, who never met a levy he didn't like, and Keith Heck, who was one of the strongest proponents of the levy and still is telling people had nothing to do with the commissioners. Levy guy, levy guy,
That is
levy
such a
guy.
weird thing, though, because Joseph Rice was out campaigning against the levy,
What is he
and
doing?
Roy Lindsay, as we all know, threw a hissy fit at the Republican Central Committee. So what is this?
I just don't get it. Well, there's many people who think that Joseph is going to run for office. This is a political show. Of course we're talking about this. What else? Where else are you going to hear about this, right? You never heard the story on KJO or in the Courier about Roy Lindsay and his potty mouth, right? He's a city councilor. Why? That guy's above reproach. What is he doing?
Yeah, you know what? I guess some people, when they get into office, they feel entitlement, and
Well, he wasn't in office at the time. Gil was.
oh,
Roy Lindsay wasn't.
he wasn't.
No, he wasn't a city. He just was what he would call me.
Yeah, friend of Gil Gilbertson, I guess.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And see, that kind of stuff, most people who love Gil and have always loved Gil and will always love Gil, they're just going to have to go, and then let it go. Oh, that Dale Matthews lying this time, or lies all the time, or whatever. They're not going to be able to internalize this because it doesn't make any sense. How can the sheriff in his uniform tell somebody to get out of their position to give it up to some other guy? How can he do that in a free and fair society? I mean, just playground rules would tell you that's crazy. Nobody's going to do that. Well, the sheriff was advocating for that, and he was pretty upset about it. I mean, they walked off in a real big huff, and I even made a suggestion. There's a space right over here. Well, it's not as good. Well, no, it wasn't as good, but you get there at 3 o'clock, and you'll get the better one.
Yes.
Now, how do you explain? You can't explain that. If you're a Gil Gilbertson lover, you're just going to have to say, nah, that can't be right. Unfortunately, one thing that we learned in science, if it's right, it's right. And you may not like it, and it may not go along with your theory of reality, but it's true. Now, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? That's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is unfortunate, and I hope that there are people somewhere who, when they get into office, don't feel like they can do that kind of thing and get away with it. And understanding that they don't have more rights. They are there to serve the public, not to be served by the public. And to come up and try and intimidate your way into a situation like that is not, in my estimation, in service of the public. And that's
This guy had his uniform on, not Roy, the sheriff, and the badge,
right,
and a gun. And he's telling me to move along.
I have not had that type of experience with Gil Gilbertson, but as I've said before, I did have the experience where he was at SOS meetings early. I was at SOS meeting before anybody else. We would have a conversation that clearly was heading in one particular tone, and then all of a sudden somebody else shows up who's a government insider, and boop, the switch has been flipped, and all of a sudden the light, instead of blue, is now green. It's a different animal entirely. So
every woman out there has had that experience with a girlfriend of hers that would talk to her in a certain way, and as soon as a guy walks in the door, she's like completely, another person and doesn't even know who you are anymore.
Yeah, something like that.
That's a
Yeah.
girlfriend to girlfriend thing that guys ought to be aware of, just as a little note to take. Well, one of the other things that happened today, and it's always very interesting, is the Kjo talk show. Just one other little note here. In the last year of his term in office, Dave Toller just, I mean, this guy just, he went over the edge. And even Dwight Ellis, who always voted along with Dave, was like, what is this guy saying? Because they'd be in a meeting. I'll try to give you an example, although it's not specific. And they'd be talking about, the commissioners would be in the little back room, would be talking about something like the animal shelter. And in the middle of the animal shelter conversation, Dave would say, you know, and they'd all look over at him, I've always been in favor of making the Ann Basker Auditorium available to people for free. And everybody looks at him like, what did he just say? I mean, first of all, where'd that come from?
I like it, you know. I've been thinking about a place where I can have all my buddies in the same place at the same time. That sounds like a great idea.
But in addition to being a total non sequitur, like what?
Yes.
Like the former treasurer said, you know, I've got your picture on my wall and it's under plastic. Have you slipped off your meds? What are you talking about? You know, out of nowhere. Well, this Dave would do on a daily basis. Toward the end of his term in office, he would say one outrageous lie or statement after every single day, every weekday. And also, it's not true what he just said. He's never said that. And even Dwight Ellis looked at him like, what the heck are you saying? I mean, our mouths were open, literally just dropped open like, what? He couldn't help himself. It was like some mental aberration or something. I don't know what it was. The pressure, something. It's like, it's not like Keith Heck, who you can tell, okay, you know, sometimes he's a doddering old guy and other times he's sharp as a tack. Well, he's sharp on attack. I don't mean sitting on one, I mean by attacking people. And sometimes he doesn't know where he is. Like at the budget meeting, they go through and they're about 7 minutes or something into the meeting. And he says, when are we going to do the approval of the minutes? Well, they did that like in the first 1 minute.
Yes.
Right? Well, I've got something to change on that. They're all like, well, we already approved the minutes. And he says, well, I want to change that thing. It says in here that the sheriff said this, and he didn't. He said this other thing. And even the audience member went, that's not true. And everybody was saying, well, no, that's not right, Keith. And he was like really confused. Like, well, wait a minute. You know, and the commissioners' meetings, we can always change the minutes any way we want to. Well, not at a budget committee, buddy. And also, it's already been approved. He was trying to change history to the more palatable version, and just not true. Well, that's the kind of stuff you're going to see. There's 11 little clips. It's fun to watch, to watch. It's fun to stare at the radio. It's fun to listen to the radio, listen to the commissioners, and all three of them. It used to be just one. Well, there was Jim Riddle, and this guy was always doing that, especially in the last year. And then there was Don Reedy. Don Reedy would do it. They all have something, and they're fairly large in girth, and then they would just say these nutty things when they were finally in office, last year in office. And now Keith Heck, large guy, sometimes says nutty things. Well, in this case, it was a small, wiry guy. It was Dave Toller, and he would just, you go, where does he get this from? This is just not true. So now we have three of them at once. I guess it was inevitable. Sometime you had to come up with three. And they just are saying the craziest things. So some of what you hear, we're going to stop at certain points. And I'll ask Mike, is that the truth? Is it falsehood? Or is it just big exaggeration? So go ahead and play the first clip. And you'll see. It starts off kind of slow, but you'll find out. Here we go.
As the chairman, do you have anything in particular you'd like to deal with today, Mr. Heck, before we move on to any other specific questions?
Not really. I mean, the weather, it's amazing how the weather does change attitudes and how people think and feel about things.
It's almost like a weight is lifted off the shoulders, isn't it?
And that's a nice thing. I mean, the big thing, the levy was voted on and was not approved by the folks. And as far as the county is concerned, our budget was already set, being planned for without considering any of the prospective monies coming in. So it doesn't represent any big change this year as far as that budgeting process goes. But yeah, it's just, the sun comes out and people get a little lighter in their step and smiles, and it's a good time of the year to be working. And
so, Mike,
Yeah.
aside from the fact that people are now a little light in the loafers or whatever,
That was a lie. That was a lie.
He's just told the audience that there's basically no changes in this current budget. Now, is that true? Is it false? Or is it an exaggeration? No changes.
I have no idea. I have no idea. Well, I mean, he did say that the budgeting process went forward without consideration of the potential money coming in from the levy. And so I'm assuming that's true. Is that true?
Well, no, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. Of course they consider it. No, The falsehood here is that he said that there basically was no change. That's going to come as a big surprise to 12 people in the jail in the DA's office who are going to be losing their jobs according to the current budget. Now, the commissioners could change numbers around and decide, but according to the budget, which is what they were talking about, that's Chuck Benson with him from Rotary Radio, Blackout Radio, because they don't tell you the news. No, there's basically no changes. Yes, there are. So, okay, that was not true. That was false. All right. Now, on the next one, they're going to talk a little bit about how, remember when we were saying that Peggy Goodwin was saying $500 million would make a big difference, but 500,000, don't forget to come to tomorrow morning's weekly business session and tell them what you think on both sides of the levee, buddies, because we're in unison on this one. They should fund the sheriff if they can. That's my opinion. I think it's Mike's opinion. It's the opinion of all the pro-levy folks, okay, except for those who are wackadoodle, as Mike says. And
believe me, there are some. They don't like the idea of pulling that money out of there because, there's a whole bunch of really complicated, complex reasons why we can't do that. And, if we had time to take it into a committee and examine everything in detail and then re-present it to the committee and then have them shoot it down and give it back to us and we do all the math and give it back to them, then, this is really, really simple. There's money there that can be moved over there to be used by the sheriff. Let's do it. We're done.
So now, remember, you were told one of the things they said in the budget committee, one of the things Simon Hare said is that, this temporary kind of solution, why that, $500,000, that's not going to last very long. And that really doesn't mean a lot when considering the kind of money.
Good. Make it $1 million then.
No, but even that doesn't mean much. But now hear what Simon Hare says about 300,000. Go ahead and play clip number 2.
There are some anomalies with Title II and Title III funds that are dedicated in the extensions of secure rural schools, and then the element of whether or not the entire package will be subject to sequestration at 7.3%. Doesn't sound like much, but in the whole picture, it's literally $300,000 or more that could be taken right off the top, so to speak, by the administration. So it's not chump change. That would pay for quite a few people. So
really,
hey, wait a minute. Yeah, well, you know what? Either it is or it isn't. Make up your mind, for crying out loud.
Please. Well, it doesn't mean anything, Mike. But this does mean something. Less money, about half as much money, means a lot. But almost twice as much money means nothing.
Yes. Yeah, you know what? Here's the problem that we have with these people is that they sound like they're legitimate, but they're completely incompetent. This guy sounds very glib, sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He's a bumbling idiot. We have to get
Come on.
rid of these people.
Well, I agree
No,
with that.
it is true. You know, listen, $1 million could easily have been taken out of the road funds and given to the sheriff department for patrols. Easily.
We've done it in the
Would have
past.
been ineffectual. No one would have even noticed. It's
Right.
not going to be done, and it's not going to be done for political purposes. This
Now-
is not only because they don't want, they don't want to take any pressure off the dire emergency, but they don't want anything good to happen. They want only bad things to happen because the levy failed.
Well, that's what happened
Nothing
with Don
good.
Reedy. That's what happened with Don Reedy when the
Only
senator
bad.
came here and he read him the riot act. He read the senator riot act saying, "Don't keep telling people positive things, or we're not going to be able to pass this levy." That was positive, and they don't want people hearing positive news. Yes, they can do this, and it will be renewed by the state. It's going to be renewed. So where's the problem? If you care about this issue, or if you really meant what you said about the sheriff getting money, you got to be there tomorrow morning at the Ann Basker Auditorium. Just because we were at odds with each other over this levy in the past and where the money's going to be spent, we should be on exactly the same side this time.
Our roads in this county are in really great condition. You've been pouring this money in every time you fill up your tank. That gas tax, that's where this money is coming from. So, we're paying this tax. We might just as well use it for patrols. There's an overage in there. It's the slush fund. It's, we used all of the money we needed to make the roads perfect as they are right now, and we have this much left over. That's what they're talking about.
That's correct.
And they have the highest amount in there that they've ever had. You can't tell me you can't take $1 million out of that and put it into sheriff patrols, and that's the county roads are not going to explode into ruin in 1 year.
Well, here's next in clip number 3 is this is all from the same radio show. This is Simon Hare's best argument against spending that money because, unlike you, well, at least unlike me, he doesn't like the idea of living paycheck to paycheck. Really?
Oh, okay.
This living year to year or somewhat paycheck to paycheck from the federal secure rural schools money, that's not a way to live. It's not a way to have employees. It's not a way to build services and people to come in and expect those services one day and then they're drastically cut the next. So I think we've all tried to do a very good job of leveling out these ebbs and flows as much as possible. So much is out of our control that we're kind of left holding the pieces more often than not and trying to make do with what we've got. But people may not agree with every decision I think either budget committee or the board makes, but if you were sitting in this chair and you understood where we were coming from, you might be surprised how similar our decisions would be.
Right. I understand.
Chuck Benson understands,
Yeah,
Mike. Isn't
right.
that great? Chuck
Yeah,
Benson, the
that
fourth
is very
commissioner.
nice.
So, Mike, if you were in his position, you might absolutely agree that we don't need to fund the sheriff.
Well, you know what? If the inclination that I had was to think like Simon, then he's probably correct. But it is not, generally speaking. You know what?
Now, what do you
once
really
again
believe?
living in
Come
a
on.
different world.
Come on.
They're
what do
living
you
in a
really
different
believe?
world than we are. That's what I believe. Sadly, no, they're in a totally different world than we are. You know what? Listen, and I've said this before. You get a bunch of people who claim to be conservative Republicans coming on Facebook, and they're going, "Oh, you gotta, vote for all these things. If you don't vote for all these things, then you're a socialist somehow." Well, I believe we're overcharged by government on everything. They don't do anything at the price that it should be done at. It's always double. So they're getting paid too much. They have too much benefits. They spend too much money on cars and equipment and little things that they need. It's not their money. They don't care, so they overspend it. So you know what, Simon Hare, you did have control of this situation. You know, as opposed to the other thing, you live in paycheck to paycheck, you didn't have any control over. You did have some control over this. You could have taken some of the money and put it in that place, but you didn't want to because it doesn't create the right effect for you politically.
And he doesn't get the 10%. Now, Mike needs to be a little careful.
Right.
Did you notice how he moderated himself at the very beginning, and then he got a little upset? Because last night he ended up Google picks the pictures, right? It gives you a choice of 3 of them. And Mike ended up like...
No, I didn't even think of that.
He looked like this.
Yes, I was like... I'm eating a sausage. You know, that'll probably be the thumbnail. This you know, but that's what it looked like. And I called Dale up and I said, Dale, really, can you help me out here? That one's really unflattering. And you know what? The funny thing is because I went there, that is the picture that is still there for me. But if I try to post that video anywhere, it comes up as the picture that Dale replaced it with, thankfully.
Yes. No,
so
instead it's me with the picture like, peace out, brother.
Right. Well, I was going to post that in social media and say, hey, let's have a caption contest. What's going on in this picture? You know, I thought that would have been kind of funny, but oh well.
You know, the other side has no sense of humor. They certainly have no sense of irony. Okay. And talking about a sense of irony, looking down at my notes here, play the next. Oh, this is about fees. Oh, yeah, fees. We've been talking on Sundays about the difference between a tax and a fee. Now, when you're listening to this, keep in mind that in order for parks to end up in the black, because it was in the red, Doreen Ferguson, who's leaving the Parks Department, came forward and said, I want to charge more fees. And listen to how Simon Hare characterizes the fees. They were just a little bit extra. At the end of this, we'll tell you what the truth was. It's another lie.
The parks and the fairgrounds do not receive general fund dollars. So your taxes don't go directly towards that out of the property taxes that you pay. They're all funded based on the fees that they collect. And so a couple of years ago, they were not doing well. They were in the red. We've adjusted those fees just slightly. They're pleased to announce that due to the hard work of the park staff and our former manager, Doreen Ferguson, they are in the black, but just barely.
Now, they adjusted those fees just slightly. True, false, or outrageous lie?
You know what? Just by the way that you've laid out the question there, I'm going to say this is an outrageous lie. This lie is so outrageous that it sets a new bar for outrageousness.
Well, now just ask our audience, would you consider doubling the fees to be just slightly? They can't help themselves. They just can't help themselves. It just comes out.
Did he say just barely in the black?
Yeah.
Out of double?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they can't stop. It's like pouring out of, it's coming out of every pore. They just can't help it. This is all in one show, and we're all like a third of the way through. Okay, so here's another one. Yet another one. Now, if you don't pay your park fee, keep in mind that it's apparently, for what we've been told, the best that we can decipher, we're trying to understand this stuff just by sitting there, it's against the law, according to the state, to charge a parking fee for the parks. Park fee, parking fee. And so what they're charging is a day use fee. And when does that day use fee come into account? When you park there. Oh, that's completely different. And if you don't pay,
I was going to say during the daytime. That's what I was
day
saying.
use, right. So
Yes,
if you go there and you park and you eat a sandwich because you want to, you must pay the park fee. But it's not a parking fee, right? And so if you go there, if you walk there, right, well, then they're not going to charge you. Now, wait a minute. If it's a day use fee And not a parking fee. See, it's all a lie. I mean, it's an obvious lie. It's a stupid little lie, but it's still a lie. Because you might want to take your grandchildren to the park, see? Or you might want to just grab up some neighborhood children, don't tell their mothers, and just take them all to the park. They'll really appreciate that.
Oh, wow. Yes,
Yes.
they will. Yes.
Yeah, just like what happened to Mike. So, look, the thing is that that it is a parking fee, okay? So listen to what Simon here. If you don't pay the fee, it'll cost you $260. Now listen to the way that Simon here characterizes that.
Yeah, I'll drop it back just a second here.
Now it's his turn.
Okay. Now we're ready. Okay, here we go.
There is a potential fine associated with the day use pass or the annual pass, and it's around $260, and that's not meant to be punitive.
That's not meant to be punitive, really.
No, what's the matter with you,
Mike? $260 is part of, it only covers the administrative cost of
instead of $5
issuing the ticket. Yeah.
Instead of $5, that's a high park fee. Instead of $5, it's $260. But Mike, don't get this wrong. It's not meant to be punitive.
Oh no!
They can't
it's not
help
meant
themselves.
to be punitive. They give that money to children's charities.
It's unbelievable, this kind of stuff. Hold on a second while I hang up on somebody.
Okay, all right.
Good gosh.
Oh, how rude!
Don't they know? Yeah, I think I know who it is.
They wanted to be on the program. They were so outraged.
Go ahead.
They were so outraged by that non-punitive fee that they just wanted to get on and get their opinion on it.
Okay, here's a little funny one. Now, you've many times in these meetings we'll hear someone say, well, I was just thinking about how we ought to connect the Framis to the Wignats. And Cheryl Walker say, I was thinking exactly the same thing. Cheryl, no, you weren't, because you don't even know what he's saying, and those are made-up words. Okay, so here's Chuck Benson doing his best Chamber of Commerce imitation instead of being a newsman. Listen to this. It's a little thing, but they can't help themselves. Every little thing. Go ahead.
And let's see, last I heard that Boatneck Festival was the second largest festival in the state of Oregon, second only to the Rose Festival in Portland. Is that correct?
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
No, it's not. That's the Rose Festival in Portland is the biggest, and the next biggest is the Oktoberfest at Mount Angel. So try to ask Cheryl. Cheryl, where did you hear that? I've heard that. Where did you hear it?
No. Here's what you need to do. You go, I've heard that, and just some fact that's out of nowhere, and then just say, oh, do you agree? Oh, of course I agree. Oh, yes, that's true. No, that's the way to do that one.
This is
Naylor
Chamber
with
of Commerce radio.
Analogical fact. And
now,
yes.
So finally, after this ridiculous, stupid, tiny little thing of what are you saying? Come on, be real. Okay, it's not Boatneck. Okay, Boatneck is wonderful, but it's not the second biggest in the state. Now, finally, Chuck Benson asked them, it's about halfway through the show, and he finally asked them some kind of question that has to do with news, this ace newsman, right? And this one is about, oh, Mike, this is what convinced me that the whole thing has got to be a cavalcade of lies. Sorry, but how many times have we told everybody and shown them the video, multiple videos, of the idea that manor development out at Ivy Airport is costing the county money every single day? Yep. Okay.
Oh, am I supposed to play it now? Is that what the deal is?
No, I thought you were going to say yes. We've shown it many times, but you don't need to.
Oh, yeah, yes, we have. That's right. We have shown that many times.
Okay, excellent work. Go ahead and play
you.
that clip and see what they're still saying.
There is no loss of money to Josephine County. That's an important concept for people to remember as well. But the overall impact of them not developing it would be a real disappointment, especially for the Illinois Valley area.
And I know we're certainly open if they want to have a modified plan or something. Because as Commissioner Heck said, we're not out any money whatsoever if the whole deal falls through. But we would be hopeful that they could come back with a modified plan. That we would be very receptive to that as well.
So, Mike,
we are sending you this message, people. We're crawling on our hands and knees. Please come back and offer us a crust of bread, because this is such a disappointment to us. And, of course, we're going to get hammered by the voters,
But why? I even asked him at a meeting, why do you keep saying that it's costing us nothing? Here is how it's costing us money. And you know that's the case. It's costing us money every day, retroactively. And you're still saying, and they said it here.
Yeah, the one really telling video is where Larry Graves is in the commissioner's office the day after the whole thing was signed or agreed upon or whatever, and he said, well, my guys are going to have to do a lot of work, and they're going to need some more money or more hours. But let me correct myself. More hours, which of course means more money.
Well, the reason he's doing that is because I brought that up at a meeting of the airport board. No, that's completely, you're just wrong. You're wrong, Mr. Matthews. I'm like, well, okay. How? Well, they don't get more money. They get more hours at the same rate. That's more money.
Yes, which yeah, let me see. Let me get out my calculator. Yeah, that's more.
They can't stop.
By my calculator here.
I'm telling you, it's like Dave Toller in his last year. Every single day, this is 11 times in one show. Okay, a couple of them are tiny little lies, like, who has the biggest dictionary, whatever. But still, come on. They can't help it. It's everything. Okay, dictionary. You know what I said. Okay, so here's the next one. And this
I do. I was hoping, sometimes here, we'll just, since you interjected there, let's just say, sometimes it's okay to throw a joke out and then not have to come back and tell everybody what it was about, because, I'm hoping that maybe they're catching some of this stuff.
Oh, you mean like county chowder?
I hope so.
Yeah, like county chowder.
Yeah, so something, yes.
Right, we're going to review the county chowder next.
Or how big is your dictionary, or something like that.
Okay. So we've seen this before. Mike, what is the rule? Oh, man. What is the rule about county commissioners talking about county business in a quorum?
Illegal.
Right. Right. So we've seen Chuck Benson do this in the past. Yes. Chuck, what are you thinking? Chuck, you're obviously not thinking. This is media review. Chuck, you're blowing the whistle on these guys. He doesn't even know he's doing it. Here's what Chuck Benson had to say when they came back from break.
Welcome back, everyone. It's the Tuesday Talk Show here, and we were just off mic talking about the airports and putting in helipads to really facilitate some of those big helicopters there and expand that a little bit more. And there's a little glitch. Is that what we have here?
Yeah, Chuck, there's a little glitch. You just admitted that they were breaking the law again.
We were all discussing helipads and EPA certifications of helipads.
Now, what's wrong with commissioners getting together and talking about county business behind your back in a secret? It's against the law, and they're violating their oath of office. And Chuck Benson, once again, accidentally blows the whistle on these characters. What? Not the sharpest tack in the box. That's our famous Chuck Benson.
Yeah, well, I guess he doesn't feel like he's the one who needs to be the the gatekeeper on that one.
He's not blowing the whistle on anything else. When they said it's not costing us any money, they say, "Now wait a minute, yes, it is." He knows that. He's at the meetings.
But
Chamber
Oh,
of
was
Commerce
he at
talking.
that meeting?
No, he was at the meeting when I
Well,
brought it up.
yeah, they report on different stuff.
Oh, different
Clearly,
stuff is
than
right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Different
Well,
stuff.
they give headlines like Joe was here for 35 years, and we're putting in a new wheelchair ramp, and that
And
kind
it's
of
going
thing.
to create 214 full-time family wage jobs that are permanent after the dang things are in there. Okay, tomorrow there's another reason to come, because the Sunny Valley sand and gravel people, the ones that oppose this thing, whether you think it's great or not great, they're going to be there. And so now, finally, they talk about yet another actual news story. And this is how they handle it on KJO.
Yeah,
Well,
before I
this is not
play
how
that,
they handle it on KJO.
yes, that's right. I will make a prediction that tomorrow that thing sails through lickety slam bam, very very fast, and because they already kind of talked about, they tabled this. Simon was anxious to, get after it even in the back room without having to take it to the weekly business session. So I think with very little fanfare, they'll bring it right up, vote it right through, bing, bing, bow.
I
That's
think
my
there may
prediction.
still be some people
And
there to
now,
have a comment to make. And now, here's how they handle the story on KJO.
yes.
I know there's been some contention about the Sunny Valley sand and gravel situation. That was on your agenda last week and is on your agenda again this week, and it was delayed because of a legal question about the LUBA appeal that hadn't been finalized yet. So
the hang up is not because of the appeal or no appeal.
Yes, it
The
was.
hang up came over right now with I realize what we did not do at the actual hearing was when it was all finished, the hearing was finished. The normal process is that an ordinance is also established as a result of that hearing. That had been the way it was done for the previous numbers of years. In the last 6, 8 years, whatever, there had been some internal discussion about that, and they wanted to put that in a suspension situation and wait until LUBA responded. Well, in the process of the last almost year now, is that we're finding out that is not the norm. It has not been the norm. Even in Josephine County has not been the norm. There is now the possibility that unless there is an ordinance established, there can be no action done by LUBA. So
there's nothing to appeal.
There's nothing to appeal. So that we're in this grounds right now to where we, as the Board of Commissioners of Josephine County, the two that were involved in this review, we need to pass an ordinance that will at least be on the books to facilitate whatever happens, appeals, no appeals. But that's really where we're at right now. And it got caught into a situation where we thought that this was supposed to be done this way. Others thought it was supposed to be done some other way. And so we didn't know really quite where we were. Now we do. And so we now have to move ahead on this whole ordinance situation.
All right. So what I'm anticipating is that the ordinance will come up for a vote tomorrow. Is that correct?
Well, yes, it's on the agenda for tomorrow. Yeah.
It'll set the first reading.
Yeah.
So Simon comes in
so-
and explains what's actually going to happen tomorrow, because Keith doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Well, and just as I suspected, sometimes they do not know where they are or what they are doing.
That's correct.
That's
And what was
that's
the
what Keith
first thing?
said in there.
Remember when Simon was in the bar with the Deacon's family? The first thing he did was threaten the father after he had texted the teenage daughter. First thing he did was lie. I didn't ever do that, and then threatened him. Okay, the first thing that Keith does, he lapses into he was wrong about his conclusion, and Simon set him straight, but he started making more sense. But the first thing he did was lie. Oh, it wasn't about yes, it was about the legal thing. It was about that legal process, and that's the first thing that they asked of the legal counsel the next day. What about this legal thing? That's what they said in the meeting. And so now, oh, no, it wasn't that. It was 5 other things. No, it wasn't. It was about the legal question. Keith, why is your first inclination to lie to us? Stop it. Snap out of it. Can't do it every day. This is what I sit through in these meetings. I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm chuckling, I'm chortling quietly to myself because they can't stop. It's like they're addicted to, they just have to constantly do it, even to each other. And every once in a while, even Simon says, well, no, that's not true. Even Simon, no, that's not quite right there, Mr. Heck. It's easy to catch this stuff. Okay, so you may recall, Mike. Oh, this is Mike's on the griddle now, buddy. You may recall what Andreas Bleck said about the Sunny Valley Sand and Gravel. He got up and he said about this whole process, I have been, what has he been, Mike?
Very patient.
Very patient.
Very patient.
Now let's see what Chuck Benson derived out of that whole thing, which was like, what was it, an hour and a half of give and take and everything? What did Chuck Benson get out of it? Here we go. Short little clip.
All right. Well, I know this has been ongoing for some time, and the contractor out there have been very patient so far, as I understand it.
Yes, I think he must have been taking notes at that time.
There's professional newsman Chuck Benson,
yes,
of the famous KJO Radio.
Very patient. Yes, let me write that down. Yes. Okay.
Very patient with the process. Yes, this process that you have to go through because you've got the whole community up in arms. They don't want these trucks rumbling through their community day and night for 30 years. And they've got some legitimate questions. Of course, none of their questions are about legal anything. But Chuck Benson walks out of that whole meeting with one quote from the guy that wants to do all the graveling. Okay. Well, at least he got part of the story right. I understand he's been very patient. Thank you for that understanding, Chuck Benson, ace reporter. So we're going to end up these clips from KJO Radio with what this whole exercise now has devolved into. It's really just a radio gathering of the Chamber of Commerce. Listen to the way that this is all summed up.
In the Illinois Valley newspaper, the Illinois Valley News, they published out this Experience the Illinois Valley, Valley Visitor, and it is just jam-packed full of information as to what events are taking place, who's doing what where, and all that kind of stuff. And there's one on preserving a regional jewel, which is the caves, obviously the chateau up there and the expansion of that, and how these things all work together. There's a map in the middle of it, has the vineyards that are available and for tours and that kind of a thing. And then there's a whole situation on the Illinois Valley Chamber of Commerce on the July 25th event, the Siskiyou Folk Bluegrass Festival, down at the shores of Lake Selmac. I have not gone to that myself, but I know the Commissioner Hare has gone at least once, and Commissioner Walker as well. So I guess I better get off my stool and go to see the Siskiyou the Bluegrass Festival.
You're going to be voting on that tomorrow with an economic development request?
Oh, that's true. Yes, that's on the agenda. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Something else to look forward to. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to KAJO, Grants Pass, Oregon, AM 1270, the Tuesday talk show. We're coming up to the top of the hour and news time. We'll invite your phone calls after the news coming up here. So in the meantime, we want to invite you to keep listening to 1270 AM. News coming your way in just a few minutes here on the national international scene from the Associated Press. We'll be back with the commissioners right after that important development for you. You're listening to KAJO, Grants Pass.
So here's an ad, which is an important development. Do you have the heartbreak of psoriasis? This is an important development. You know, Keith doesn't know what's going to be happening tomorrow. They could be voting on more, whatever. Listen, that's such a happy note. We should probably end it here because we're at the traditional ending of our show. We were going to play back for you 6 radio ads where we take the commissioners to task for their decision about, I can hear people say, play him, where we take the commissioners to task for their decision about not spending money on the sheriff. What do you say, Mike? Should we take that extra time, or should we play those some other time?
That'd take us. No, save it, or that'd take us well over an hour. You know,
Well, not an hour to play it back. An hour all told is what he means.
Not an additional hour. It'd take us well over an hour for the program. The thing, you know, the one thing that seems to always happen whenever we do radio cuts is there's always plenty of filler in between, and you know, you get 10 or 12 cuts from a radio program, and you can easily do an hour on that, no problem.
Oh, no problem. And that, I don't think it's filler. I think it's our responses to this goofy show. I mean, you may have listened to the same show, and this stuff is passing on by. And now, wait a minute. Roll that back a little bit. Well, this doesn't mean anything. Really? Or we're not spending $1 on this. We've proven it again and again and again. Commissioners were not involved at all with this levy. What? This is what we mean when we tell you that for some reason, just roll of the dice, these 3 commissioners, they're all 3 doing it. And now they're doing it on a daily basis.